Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. I greet you in peace. Assalamu alaikum. First and foremost, as a Muslim, I want to thank Allah for blessing me to be here this morning with you. And as always, I'd like to thank the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for giving me, and Minister Rodney, and 168 of his ministers across this country who hold down study groups and mosques, an opportunity to help him in the work that I believe, I hope you believe, God has put on his shoulder. I'm honored always to come to Philly. I was invited here to introduce my new book. It's been out now for 4 months, but at the bookstore that I was at yesterday. And I just want to say that going in that bookstore and seeing the energy, Uncle Bobby, he calls it, and Mark Lamont Hill, and I was really touched. I was moved. Then I didn't know, I came in a day early because I've been on the road, so I would get 1 day of rest, but I didn't know that Ilyasha Shabazz, one of Malcolm's daughter, was also introducing her new book. And I sat in her session yesterday, and it was really unbelievable. Brother Captain and I were there, and Brother Eugene, and she did an excellent talk to young people. The name of her book is Betty Before X, I think that's what it is, and it's the life of her mother. And a couple of questions in the audience when it was over. Somebody was trying to get her to say something about the nation, how she felt, and so forth. But I pray Allah will continue to bless her. She had dodged that bullet completely, and she wasn't there to attack people. But it was a blessing. I didn't expect it. When I saw her, you know, we embraced, and out of all of Malcolm's daughters, she's the one that I get along with the best. And that's because we've worked together, did a couple of TV shows, and had frank conversations. And when I read her book, Growing Up X, I was really impressed, especially the part about Philadelphia, because her mother, this is her mother's city, and every summer they would come here to stay with their relatives, and what went on. Excellent book. I mentioned it yesterday when I got up to say a word. But I just wanted to tell you that she was in the city. If you get a chance, the captain brought 3 copies, you know, of her book. But the book she wrote, she's narrating the history of her mother. And though people would like to continue this division of 50 years of what happened and keep revisiting it and going back to it, at the root of it, much of it is the enemy who loves to see us divided against one another. Philadelphia is a particular city. I always say that when I come here, because the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad entrenched in this city, and though there are many Muslims that went in different directions, the thing about it is that Islam has made a change in their life. So my subject today is the strange twist of history. And because history takes paths that you would least expect. Right now, America is in trouble. There's a book written by one of our African giants called Things Fall Apart. This is where America, I put things, I scratched out things, and on my notes I wrote America. And America is falling apart. But right in the midst of this, the strange twist of history is that these brothers and sisters wrote this film called Black Panthers. And it's sweeping America. It's been in all of the newspapers. I mean, the New York Times ran articles on it 3 days in a row. And some people will look at it and say, oh man, that's just a fictional thing. It is. But they chose a name, Black Panthers. And most of these last 2 generations don't know anything about Black Panthers. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad never attacked them and told his ministers, do not attack them. Though when we were young, in the 60s, they had the Panther newspaper. And their whole history of how they developed the Panthers really came from the Nation of Islam. Eldridge Cleaver, when he was in jail, he joined the Nation. He became a Muslim, came out, and he joined the Panthers. He did some critique on his membership in the Nation, but their 10-point program on the back of their paper. And they had a feeling that we were calling the white man the devil. Well, they could call him a pig. And they didn't have no conflict with that. And we said that Allah was going to destroy America. They said, well, we may get on the curve and try to destroy it before Allah destroyed it. I mean, that was where their thinking was. But this particular film, I talked to my daughter. She went to see it. I haven't seen it yet, but I've been reading the reviews. And Al Sharpton did a review on it this morning. And it's important in terms of the impact. This morning, some commentator on Fox News said LeBron James should just keep dribbling. I don't know if you heard it or not, but by tomorrow it'll be all over the news. And LeBron answered her. You know, in other words, you a sports figure. Don't weigh into politics. That's not your area, you know. You just be a good Negro, sing a song, and play ball. That's all. But when he weighed in on it, it upset her, and she came out on the air and talked about it, because this is a strange twist of history right now. So you got a picture called Black Panthers. Most of the younger generation know nothing about the Panthers, but at the root of the picture is a black hero. And then it's Afrocentric, okay? I saw on the news early this morning people going to see it over the weekend, and it will probably be one of the greatest gross pictures in terms of income in the history of America for a long time. And it's centered around black people. And so, but I saw the picture of the young families dressed in African dress going to see the picture, and it's bringing a level of consciousness that most people don't see. The white man saw it as he put up money and so forth as a way to make income, because he knows that we are movie goers, you know, and something like that. But also he didn't see the long-term repercussions of how this strange twist of history will turn things around. And so the other day I was in Atlanta and I had my grandson. He's 21. Let's see, his birthday is April of this year. He'd be 22 years old. I always remember his birthday because he was born the same day as Paul Robeson. And I took a book out. I took this particular book out right here. It's called The Rediscovery of Black Nationalism. Now, the book was written in 1969. I owned a bookstore in New York, and I ordered a lot of copies of it because it was a book written by a white boy, Theodore Draper. He's since passed away. He taught at Princeton. And I'm going to mention this afternoon at the bookstore. I'm going to go into more details about it. And I hope you will join me. The program is at 4 o'clock. Is it at the bookstore at 4 o'clock? And I'll have you out of there before Maghrib, because I won't keep you there long. But I'm going to talk about it because, to me, it's really important. And the fact that this brother opened a bookstore, and if you ever saw him when he was doing his commentary and question on CNN, I knew when I first saw him, I said, now he's been influenced by the teaching of the nation or some consciousness, because of the way he answered the critics and the way he critiqued what they were saying. So this book came out in '69. My bookstore opened in '69 in New York City, right under the mosque. And I don't know if I mentioned it here, but I'm going to mention it again. Dr. Abdul Salam and I went in partnership. I was selling books, and I thank Malcolm because he encouraged me in selling books. I started with Quran selling in 1963, and then by 1969, after the mosque was burned down and rebuilt and we were opening the mosque, I wanted to open a bookstore. And so Dr. Salam, who got books from overseas, we went into a partnership. And we wrote to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad for a name of the bookstore. And we had these fancy names, you know, in Arabic. Book is called Kitab. So we wanted to call it Kitab Suk. In Arabic, Suk means market. So we wanted to call it the book market. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad wrote us back and said, why don't you pick a simple name, like books and things? Then he said, you're going to have a school upstairs. So sell stationery. So that'll be the things. But one of the books that I started selling, it was just published, was this book called The Rediscovery of Black Nationalism. And when you read because the nationalist movement was growing as compared to the civil rights movement. But look at the chapters from Pan-African to back to Africa, self-determination, the Nation of Islam, Malcolm X, the Black Panthers, Black Power, the land question, and then Black Studies in the university. So it was a book that helped young people with consciousness. So I sold the book. The man who wrote it was a Marxist, and he had his overview, but he gave a history of the Panthers. So I'm riding in the car, so I give it to my grandson. I said, while we're driving, read this chapter on the Panthers. He went to Howard University, so he's pretty literate, you know, he reads and so forth. So when he read it, he kept saying, wow, Grandpa, I never knew this. Wow, I never knew it. Because who would teach him? They wasn't teaching it in school. But it talked about how the movement was built. It talked about the main players, Bobby Seals, Huey Newton, Eldridge Cleaver. It went into all of them who were influenced by the Nation of Islam. And the way, if you like to read and would like to know about it, there's a book called Waiting for the Midnight Sun by Peniel Joseph. You can remember his name, Joseph. Waiting for the Midnight Sun. He has a section in there. He says that the movement, in terms of black consciousness, that's how we came in Islam. When I was 18 years old and I heard the teaching, I was not looking for religion. I wasn't out there saying, I'm looking for a new religion because I don't like Christianity. It didn't happen that way. I was looking for something to be involved in the movement, the struggle of our people against this enemy. I was looking for something so we could liberate all of these brothers who are locked up in prison. I mean, and they locked up in prison from one end of this country to another. Their lives have been snatched from them. When I was in the brother's bookstore, Brother Captain, we were talking about books, and I love books. That's really me. And we saw a book there about the history of some gangsters in Philadelphia. And when we looked at the cover, all of them were Muslim brothers in shirt and tie. And there's books written like that. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad didn't start no gangster movement. But if you got the mindset of the enemy is a gangster. He's the original gangster. You're talking about an OG. He don't rob just little candy stores and break into houses. He robs nations and worlds. And so, but that's not you. So it shows you that you want to be him. So we picked up the book. And matter of fact, Brother Captain picked it up, looked at it, and then we looked through it, and I saw people in there that I knew. But I was wondering, how did Islam get involved in this gangster kind of mentality? It's not the teaching of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Now, all praise is due to Allah. There is, and I want to say this because people spend time trying to prove their position is right. There's a group of brothers who are Muslims who made this little film, and it talks about Master Fahad Muhammad, and they make him a gangster. How he sold names in Detroit. I'm just telling you. Now, if you don't know the facts that everybody had to pay him some money to get a holy name, he gave out $25,000. Then they said that, and it's ridiculous. This is not my subject. I'm talking about the strange twist of history. But give me a minute on this. Then they talked about how he came from, they confused. They said he came from New Zealand. His mother was a Maori, and his father was a white man. And he went to California, and in California, he was sticking up people. I mean, they got all this in the film. I mean, unbelievable. But the thing about it is that, what are they doing? Why are they attacking it when they don't know the truth and got distorted half-truths and lies? What is the purpose? And they spent some money producing it because they photoshopped it. They took the FBI picture of Wallace Dodd, who Hearst pressed, and tonight, when you look at television, you will see Patty Hearst, terrorist, and so forth. They keep advertising it. Now, most people, I don't know what's on it because I haven't seen it, but most people don't know that there's a root in there in the Nation of Islam, because the young brothers, Sen Q and Their group in California were moved by the Nation of Islam to become militant, but the father who owned Hearst Press, Randolph Hearst, he's the one that put out the first story that the Nation of Islam founder was a white man, a criminal from New Zealand. He put it out and then put a picture of it in the newspapers across the country and spread. This is 1963. And so, but now you look at it, what was their purpose? Because the growth of the Nation of Islam, the movement of the Nation of Islam, the conscious level of the Nation of Islam, feeding it to black people in this country to wake them up. So what they want to do is destroy that, confuse you. You don't know which way to go, and you end up being a Negro. So this is why there's if you get a chance, go to the Quran and read Al-Baqarah, the cow, 2 and 18. It talks about the light that comes around you, illuminated by light, and then you go into darkness. So when many brothers who heard Islam in prison or heard it in the street, and Islam woke them up, gave them the strength to break away from the vices in the world and all of the madness, clean up their drug and alcohol problem, clean up the problems they had with their family, and they become enlightened black men. And say that I will not be a victim of the white man's world that just want to incarcerate me in prison or keep me as a dead black man. That I want to do something different with my life. And so you had to break away with, this is the power of Allah in the center of your life. And so, but the brothers felt that they want to keep a foot in the world of the white man and keep a foot in Islam. See? And that's where the problem comes up. So bringing consciousness to our people. So when I had my grandson to read it, he was blown away. Said how they started and so forth in California and Huey Newton, but he didn't know it. But then he wanted to know, well, how does that relate to this movie that's out, Black Panthers? I give the brothers and the sisters who wrote the script to make a super black hero, I give them great credit. When I read how they went to Africa, and they went to the Maasai in East Africa, in Kenya and Tanzania, and the colors that you see come from Africa, the dress that they put on, they bring in a level of consciousness about this continent that our people just don't have. Most black people don't know anything about Africa, but this is the strange twist of history, because we got to wake our people up. And now you got a madman in the White House. And so he's saying make America great again. He means make America white again. And he don't have no love for black people and nobody else. I mean, he's just a madman in the White House. And then the killing in Florida. I was in Florida the day it happened. I was speaking in Miami. And that horrific killing of 17 high school students, and then immediately they want to say that the white boy's crazy. Okay? Immediately, just like the one in Charleston, South Carolina. First thing they say, he has mental problems. And they're trying to clear him now, just give him life in prison, and then probably after he does 25 or 30 years, they'll let him out, say he was crazy, like the man Hinckley who tried to kill Reagan. They locked him up for a while. Now he's a free man. That's what they do to their own people. But we got a case. Because if mental instability is the reason for you to be forgiven of a crime, then hell, all of us are crazy because we out of our minds. They robbed our minds. So when we commit a crime, I wasn't in my right mind. What do you mean you wasn't in your right mind? The white man robbed my mind when he brought me here. He changed my name. He made me Joseph instead of Kwame or Muhammad, okay? He robbed me of the knowledge of myself. Treated me like an animal, so I'm not in my right mind. I'm in his mind, and he's a criminal and a crook and a thief and a murderer. So I'm in his mind. So my grandson, when he read it, his mind was blown. So I'm saying that this film will produce a level of consciousness among our people. Instead of going, I mean, a lot of people go and see it and condemn it and so forth, but the film being put out there like that has a meaning. I was really impressed because when they made Coming to America with Eddie Murphy, they made it a comedy. I mean, it was a joke, you know. And but this one is serious about a person who is a hero, and then the sister in there that's fighting in there. See, all of that. Imagine your little young daughters looking at that and the strength of a black woman and people who can think and do things. This helps to shape them. So I just wanted to mention that I'm trying to get some more of these books. I only have a few because they give a good overview. Now, we're dealing with a white professor, Dr. Theodore Draper at Princeton University, who did this book because he saw that there was a conscious movement, but he wanted to write what was the root of it. And the Nation of Islam is all through it because you got the nation, then you got Malcolm. You can't write about Malcolm without writing about the nation. You got the Marcus Garvey's movement, and the Savior told the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, mention Marcus Garvey in your speeches and Noble Drew Ali because they were the early forerunners. So I'm going to talk about that just for a minute, but I want to mention that I'm in Philly to go to the bookstore, and I know after you get through, I'm going to try to make my lecture short because sisters don't laugh. We've heard that song. You sing that song all the time. But I do want you to come to the bookstore. And because the brother's effort to open that bookstore in Philly, and there's another bookstore in Philly, I don't know the name of it, but there's two black bookstores. And what is it? Hakeem's that passed away. His bookstore, who's running his bookstore? And he has the same name for the bookstore? Hakeem was one of my biggest customers when I had books and things in New York. I sold him all of his Islamic literature, and I really respect his tenacity of will to keep that store open. But Philly is a kind of a reading city, but you're moving away from it, not only because Temple is here and Molifi Place and so forth, but it was a conscious city where black people did read literature. And it may come from, and if you like to read and you have the patience, reading is a discipline. I'm working on my second book, and I had to put this one out first in order to get the proceeds to finish my second book, which is my autobiography. Being I came in the nation at 18 years old is about my life in the Nation of Islam, okay? But Philly is a city like that, reading. So I'd like you to come out. Number one, I'm a follower of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad under the leadership of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I hope that that's where you are. So if I come to the city and I go to the bookstore and it's all other people there, but the followers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad are not there, it sends a signal to people. It sends a signal. It's got to be a signal. Man, all of the Muslims in the city, Akbar's here, and all of these non-Muslims are here to hear him, but his own people are not here. So you always have to think about that. It's more than sometimes your personal preference, but the interest in what you belong to, and to strengthen it. I mean, in the old days when the minister was traveling from Boston, when he was the minister in Boston prior to 1965, the believers would go where he would go in order to inspire the other people of what we're about, and they could see us. Because I'll never forget my first visit to see the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in June of 1960. He came to New York. And what I was impressed with that day, that Minister Farrakhan took the collection. He looked like he was 17 years old. And he took the collection. But the Muslim brothers and sisters with their families and all of them together, it impressed me to the extent at 18 years old, I said, man, that's what I want to be. See? And a lot of people see it and they look at it, but you need something that can strengthen you against his world. And the thing that you need is knowledge of how to deal with his world. And you have to confess, we may not have that knowledge. You say, well, why do you say that, Akbar? Look at the prisons. If you had that knowledge, you wouldn't be locked up in the jail. It hurts me. And you have to understand to go into these prisons and see this massive humanity. 3 million people. That's more than many countries in Africa in the world. 3 million people locked up, and most of them are us. Were we born criminals? There has to be some kind of problem. Is there something that we can do to free the captive believer, to get him out of prison and to keep him out of prison, not to come out of prison, go back in the street? And the lame excuse that the brothers will use if you sit down and talk to them, and sisters, I got to feed my family. You got a job for me? I'm going to feed my family. I don't care what. And you go out, get you a pistol, shoot somebody, rob a house, get busted, and go right back to prison again. So our duty and responsibility, and that's what we have worked for, to reach our people, not to get involved in petty arguments over this and that and, so forth. Get involved in that. Look at the mass of humanity out in the street, that if they just had a little of what you have from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Minister Farrakhan, they could change the course of their life. So the world opens up, and I want to mention this because once you love yourself and you respect yourself, there's trials in life. That's why the favorite ayat in the Quran that people quote all the time, do men, women think they'd be left alone on saying you believe or we believe? And certainly Allah will try us. And so in the trial of Allah, do you go back to that world? But once you open up your mind and show this love and respect of self, then you see the world a little different. The world is totally different. But if you just think that you're a Negro and you ain't going nowhere and that, it ain't nothing divine about us, we just a bunch of Negroes who got caught up in slavery, came to America, worked for this white man, got freed, and we still in pure hell. And because a few get through the gate and appear to be prosperous and appear to be okay, then if they don't have a knowledge of themselves and a love of themselves, they have a problem. Brother, when you mentioned about putting on the minister's tape, and the minister got tons of tape, among our families, his tapes on marriage. And so people inspire you. People give you hope and the desire to do better. People say words that you were looking for and searching for, and certainly Minister Farrakhan is one of those individuals that can feed us in that way. Thank you very much. I was waiting for this pen. So I was walking through the airport, and I came here to announce my book and talk about my book. There's two parts when you get the book. I hope you would read the 66th chapter, near a series of articles, and it's about community. It's about Imam Muhammad and Minister Farrakhan. I want you to read it. And then when you open the book up, thank you, the brother got me I work with Maps of Africa, and I'm on a sacred mission to put one in every black American's home. And I get the maps from Africa, and they sold so fast after I got my book out that I ran out and probably won't have any for Savior's Day because of the shipping time from Africa. But I just want to say this. I was walking through the airport, and they were playing some sound of Philadelphia music. And it really touched me. How did it touch me? It touched me because Huff and Gamble, Lukman and Huff, they sat down, and being that I know the brother, I've known Kenny Lukman since 1972. And many people don't know that our Black Family Day, our great Black Family Day in 1974, it was Lukman that helped us with all those. How do you think Billy Paul and all those artists got there? It was Lukman that got him, and he got him to do it for transportation. No artists, do. And but let me. I'm trying not to make my subject long, but I just want to tell you this because you're from Philadelphia, and there's certain things you should know that Islam impacted Lukman's life because he was a Jehovah's Witness, and men, when God blesses you to grow, you realize how much, and women, you need God in the center of your life. And that the things you can't just, I'm going to put God over here in the corner for a minute and deal with this Negro over here, okay? No, you got to keep God in the center of your life. These brothers were geniuses. And what they did is they were sensitive to the time, the strange twist of history. They wrote music that spoke to the hour. See? And this is where the enemy took the young, talented musicians off track when he took them into this debauchery, this gangs and shooting and women and all of that. He took them off track of where we were in terms of our writing music. And our music was, and it's a part of your soul, it was about love. It was about, a lot of it was about my baby left me, I wish he would come back, okay? But it was the kind of music that you wrote. So I was interviewing, I had a radio show in St. Louis, and I was interviewing Lukman for the show. And I'll never forget two of the greatest stories that he told me in terms. Now, here's the city of Philadelphia, the Philadelphia sound. It's gone all over the world. And Saturday morning in most cities you go to, I don't like the term oldies but goodies, but you go to the old school station and it's dominated with the Philadelphia sound. Dominated. And then there are many tunes that were written by Gamble and Huff and Bell that other artists sung, and they weren't on Philadelphia label, but they became known. But when I walked through the airport and they were playing the tunes of Gamble and Huff, it made me feel good inside, because their music opened up a whole new world to them. So in that interview with Lukman, I was asking him about Me and Mrs. Jones. It's a beautiful tune now. Billy Paul, okay? May God bless him and the impact that he made. They even turned that tune into strings. You can go get string music and you can Google it, pull it down on Pandora, one of them, and say Me and Mrs. Jones in strings. I mean, you would love it. So I said, Lukman, how did this tune come about? What inspired you? Because writers are inspired, okay? And he told me the story. He said, Huff and I were working on some music, and we would go to this particular little restaurant where we would take a break at, but every day we would see this brother or sister, one would arrive first and take a seat. Then he would come in and take a seat, okay? And he said, and we were over there, you know, doing our thing, but we looked at them and we could see in their eyes that these two individuals really loved each other. You could see it, just the sense of it. And then when the lunch was over, they wouldn't leave together. He would leave, she would sit there for a while, and then she would leave. So that's how they came up, Me and Mrs. Jones. We got a thing going on, okay? We got to be so careful, okay? So that's how that tune came up. I said, wow, Kenny. But that's the creative genius in it. Then another tune I asked him about, because at my family reunions, we always played Family Reunion. I mean, that's like the theme song. I said, and how did y'all come up with that? He said, we were in there, we were busy working out a tune. You know, they're artists, they're creative. They asked God to help them with their creative genius, you know. And we were writing a tune, and this brother came into the lobby right down here on Broad where they had their office. And he said, Mr. Gamble, I got to see you. I got to tune you. I know you will love it. It's, you know, please just listen to it. And Kenny said, I told him, not right now, brother. Not right now. But he wouldn't. He was just persistent. He stayed there. So Kenny said he went back and he told Huff, got this brother out here, man. And the brother said, please, y'all got to see. I'm just coming back from my family reunion, and I want to talk to you about a tune. The tune wasn't Family Reunion. And when he said, I just came back from my family reunion, then Huff and Gamble said, let's try something on Family Reunion. And in 20 minutes, they wrote that tune. I mean, really, and one of my favorites, I know the OJs did it, but Lou Rawls, when Kenny had Lou Rawls and Lou Rawls did it, because, you know, that mature Lou Rawls sound, you know. And but I'm just saying that, and I'm saying this to you because that same kind of genius is in you. You got to know that everyone has a unique quality, but you got to nurse that quality. You got to do something with it. Life is so short, you know. I was here before. I'm violating something that my family tell me not to do, but I have to do it because I'm thankful to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that he taught me how to eat to live. I'm 75 years old. I'm 75 years old. And even though I've had some health challenges, I'm still around. I can still climb in and out of those planes, you know. And right now my brain seems to be clicking all right. I don't know what it'll be tomorrow, but my point is the strange twist of history. And you got to do whatever your song is, you sing it, okay? You have to be the one who witnesses the power of Allah in your life, and you have to testify to others. They say, why do you belong to the Nation of Islam? It's like a cult movement and so forth and so forth. You got to tell them that move on what rocks your boat. The Nation of Islam rocks my boat because it pulled me out of a world where I was in serious trouble. So you do what rocks your boat. It says you have to sing your song, okay? So you have to do what you have to do, and let me do what I have to do. But I have every responsibility to share the beauty of what it did to me and what it did for me. And that's what Muslims have to do. I just got a few more pages. Just bear with me. Bear with me for a minute. There's what you call repair. You know, people, sometimes when they go to therapy, they say, I'm going to repair, okay? Because evidently something is broken down, something is not functioning right. And many families, this is the strange twist of history, many families have problems. And problems come up, they're centered around money, a lot of it, okay? Money that you need. You got children going to school, to universities, you need money to keep them in the school. You got sons and daughters that are incarcerated. They need money while they're incarcerated. They need lawyers. These are the things that you're challenged with every day. I mean, and some of us, we don't like to talk about it. We don't deal with it, or we try to make out it's not there. We avoid it. But it's the reality of life. And so when you have this and you need something to be repaired, that's why the man wrote the book, Things Fall Apart. In the life of individuals, things fall apart, so you got to get on a path that will keep you on what the Muslims call the mustaqim, the straight path. And you can't let things pull you off that path. You got to keep your eye on the goal. And you're challenged every day. You're challenged with your family. But you got to keep it going. You got to keep building and repairing. This is an important aspect of your life. And so as you move forward, these are things that you have to do in order to keep your life going. Now I want you to just take a minute and look at what's happening in America. Look at what's going on from the White House down. Look at the president tweeting out things. Look at the guns in our community. There are people, I saw a Negro on television this morning arguing that we should get guns, we should have guns allowed. I mean, he wasn't arguing to get guns to do things illegal, but all of us should have guns. They should have the right to have an AK-47 or whatever they're buying out there. He was arguing for it. And in his argument, if you go and do a rerun on Al Sharpton's show, you will see it. But what you see happening in America is that she's falling apart. And the book you need to pull off your shelf, get the dust off it, is The Fall of America. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad talked about it. We read it, we put it away, but now it's happening right now. America is falling. She's disrespected in the world. I mean, all over the world, America is disrespected. Her number one partner in Asia, which is Korea, invited their brothers from North Korea to come and be a part of what they were doing with the Winter Olympics. America didn't like it at all, but what could she do? And the more she talked against it, the more they got involved in it. So America don't have the power and the sway. They look at the president of America as an absolute racist, which he is. He don't pull no bone. And so now we have to look at where we at in this equation. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad told us that we would have to separate. Now, many of us don't want to separate. You know, separation to them is like a foreign language. You know, you don't want to go nowhere because you feel that what you have in America is good enough. Then you said, well, Akbar, where will we go? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said either some land here in America, and you got to be strong enough to fight for that. That's why, brother, Captain Anthony out of Chicago in his martial arts, you may not see it just as an art, but you don't carry weapons, supposedly, okay? So being that you, some brothers say, well, I don't carry weapons, I just keep them at home, okay? But you shouldn't have weapons in your house, but you still have to know how to defend yourself and defend your family. And one thing, when you know the arts, you're more positive. Nobody puts no fear in you. So he talked about two places, either some land here. This is the teaching of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And it may be some aspects of it that you want to avoid. And then he said maybe elsewhere. The Africa may be a place. Right now, the focus is going to be on Africa. Imagine the President of the United States calling the home of over 1 billion people, from Tunisia to South Africa, from Accra to Somalia. This is Africa. 1 billion people, he calls it an S-hole. Now, I mean, and he calls it, and then the African leadership to me is weak, because even though it's a struggle, they should have broke off diplomatic relations. And he uses his money. He say, these black folks ain't going nowhere because they need this American dollar, that I'm giving it to them so I can mess over them, call them anything. And they don't say a word. That's a weakness, because you don't have God in the center of your life. You relying on America instead of relying on God. So this is where we are, and we have to go to work. The minister will be delivering a speech, inshallah, next Sunday at our Savior's Day. And the speech is being delivered at a time that America is in great difficulty. They're saying that the rumor is, I heard on a radio show of the white left, they said that Trump borrowed millions, maybe billions of dollars from the Russians when he went broke. And the Russians backed him up. This is only what I heard now. I don't know the truth of it. And so he's been busy trying to defend the Russians. And this is a major problem. The white people that know that he has put America in their own deep S-hole now want to find a way to impeach him, get him out of office, and they may have a special crew somewhere there in Washington that will neutralize him. So this is what they're thinking, because America is in trouble. They lost their friends throughout the world. They lost their friends in Africa and the Caribbean, calling Haiti what he called Haiti. So America is in deep trouble. This is the strange twist of history, because even though we talk separation, he's now talking about putting us out, putting out 200,000 people out of the country, stopping Muslims from coming into the country. So America is in that, so you can't act as if things are normal. They are not normal. So I'm going to just take a minute in my closing. The strange twist of history. We have to go back to, where did all of this start? When Master Fahad Muhammad came to America and began to teach, he went after the people in Detroit, which the Depression had put a lot of people out of jobs. But he began to teach the religion of Islam. That's why I want to ask all of those critics, if he was a criminal from New Zealand and was in jail in California, where did he learn Islam at? I mean, where did he learn what he taught? Who taught him that? So what happens is, where did it start? It started in Detroit. How did it start? He began to teach our people about diet. He began to teach them about Islam, and saying that we were the lost people of God, and that we were special people. That's what he told us. And see, most people don't want to believe that they're special, because when they look at their wretched condition, they say, we couldn't be special. But you are special. You're the chosen of God. And then he began to build a movement. In 1960, Eric Lincoln got a grant from Ford Foundation because of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's impact on black America during the times of the Civil Rights Movement. And you got to study these kind of things to understand it, because it's up to you to teach it to your children, so that your children can be grounded in something. You know, it's like a tree without a root. So when he began to teach, he began to pull people out of the terrible condition that they were in. And if you want to do a research on it, Erdman Benyard wrote his thesis for his doctorate degree at the University of Chicago in the early 30s. And his thesis was on the voodoo cult of America, and it was about the Nation of Islam. It was the base of what Eric Lincoln, who wrote Black Muslims in America, that's where he got his information. And in that, he described, if you read it, it would just get to you. He described the change that came about from what Master Fahad Muhammad was teaching. He said that they were in miserable condition. They were in poverty. They were victims of alcohol. They were dysfunctional, fighting, and so forth. He said, but when they accepted this teaching, they changed like overnight. Changed their diet. They cleaned their houses up. So he was showing the power of this teaching to change them. And Eric Lincoln, his grant from the Ford Foundation, wanted to see what made it that these people were attracted to the teaching of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Now, he wrote it that if we made America balanced and accepted people and so forth, you wouldn't have black Muslims. But Malcolm did it different in his research, as he used to teach, in the Rising Tide of Color by this British man who saw that there was an appeal in Islam to black people. And this is a white European. And that when they heard Islam, it seemed to stir, he wrote, the militant nature in the black man. There was something that appealed, and he was absolutely correct, even though this was in the 20s. He wrote about this because they were talking about the impact of the colored, as he called it, people rising throughout the world, but he took Islam and black people and wrote about it. I think the book is reprinted, but there's something that stirs the nature in the black man and black woman. And if I had to dissect it, because millions of us came to America as Muslims in the holds of slave ships. Okay, millions. It wasn't just a few, but we never believed that. We believed that we were in the jungles of Africa, somewhere in West Africa, hanging in trees. We didn't have any language or knowledge or culture. Most of us believed that. Even when I first became a Muslim, I didn't necessarily believe that we were Muslims and had some connection to Islam. I believed basically what white folks had told me, that we were in the jungles of Africa. This white man found us there. We thank God, and he brought us to America, taught us Christianity, and civilized us. We actually believed that. But as we began to study, we found out there were great civilizations in West Africa. Mali, which is a country now, was a great civilization in West Africa. Ghana, which is a country now, named after the great Ghana Empire in West Africa, in Songhai. These were great civilizations. And then if you like to read, get the Ivan van Sertima's book. He was from Guyana. They came before Columbus, and he talked about how Muslim on the west coast of Africa sailed into the Americas. We never knew that. So Islam came on the ships that sailed to America, but also when they captured slaves in West Africa in particular, not including the slaves that they brought from East Africa around and put them in the holds of ships, they were Muslim. And when we were brought here, they robbed us of that knowledge of Islam. So it's something in our DNA. And I can tell you for sure, being in the nation since 1960, it has to be something in the DNA, because we stayed. And even those who left, Islam was still in them. Even those who went away from it, it was something in it that kept us. And the hell that we have given those who came to join, being that they stayed, it has to be in the DNA. I hope you understand that. We raised from hell, but nobody wants to go nowhere because there's something about Islam that captivates us. So when it all started, this is what we do. There's a special way to look at it. The way to look at it is that God's people lost in the West, brought here in the holds of slave ships. Nobody could do anything with us. If you get a chance, read the true story of Frederick Douglass. His name was actually Frederick Bailey, on the eastern shore of Maryland. Read about him. His father was a white man taking advantage of a slave woman. But there's something in him. Phyllis Wheatley. And if you read Phyllis Wheatley's story, you could see that evidently these people were Muslims. If you read another book called Journey into America by a Muslim named Akbar Ahmed. He's a Pakistani Muslim former ambassador. He wrote 2 books, Journey into Islam, Journey into America. He went all over the country and he found the roots of Muslims that came to America in the offshore of South Carolina, Georgia coast, the Out Islands. He found the roots of Islam there among the slaves. Then you can read the Prince and the Slave book and other books that you can see that Islam was in many of the slaves. So it was taken away from us. Then in 1930, it came back. And it came back in a way that most people didn't suspect, but there was Master Fahad Muhammad in Detroit teaching Islam, and it attracted 25,000 men and women. In Detroit alone, just in that area, joined Islam. Why? What was the difference in them joining Noble Drew Ali or Marcus Garvey? The difference was in Islam. I'm going to close out on this, the strange twist of history. I've been blessed. In my book, I talk about some of my travels throughout the world, but not all 154 countries that I've been blessed to visit. On this continent of Africa, there's 54 African countries, and Allah has blessed me to visit 44. And I was in New Zealand, and it was an interesting trip. My wife and I were first in Australia, and then we went over to New Zealand. I was going around the world. And what happened, one of our brothers in Boston, who was our secretary, Ernest, later became Brother Raouf, we were selling journals. On the back table, you'll see the early Savior's Day. I don't have any journals back there, but you'll see them on the table. I have them on display. The programs from them Savior's Days. So the minister gave whoever was the top seller. That's how we financed Savior's Day, with the journals. How many were here when we were doing the journals? Anybody? I got any witnesses? See, it's a whole different generation. And so we sold ads. The money to rent the hall and advertise and posters and everything came through the sale of that journal. The minister said the one who was the top seller at a certain level of the journal, he'll give them a trip around the world. So Brother Raouf, Brother Ernest, our secretary in Boston, he was the top seller. He was an insurance agent in Boston, so he knew a lot of people. And they bought ads from him. And we had a big, thick book like that. And so the minister gave him the trip, but he knew that, you know, I was familiar with the world, so he asked me, why don't you go with it? And so I made this trip around the world. It was, it was really a trip. All praise is due to Allah. I've been around the world 4 times now, and I don't know if Allah blessed me to do it one more time, but so we get to New Zealand. Bear with me, I'm going to close out on this. And we go to New Zealand, and I meant to tell Malcolm's daughter this yesterday. So I do a radio show. The Maoris are there. This is a group of people that Captain Cook found in New Zealand. And they call themselves black people because when they went there, most of them were very dark. And the English said that by 1845, they would be wiped out. They wouldn't exist. But they bounced back. So when I got there, I was on the show, and a brother or his sister called and said that the leader of your organization is from here. I said, is that right? They said, yes, he's from here. And so I listened to him. And then when I got into it on the show, I said, well, in 1963, August, the white Americans in the newspaper called the Hearst Press. That's why I want you to, if you got time, to look at Patty Hearst. They're going to show a lot of other things. But there's a part in there where the brothers made the Hearst family by whiting H&G and bean pies and give out to the community in San Francisco. Anybody in here know about that history? Okay, I got one sister, that's right. And whether they're going to put it in there or not, because we were very strong in San Francisco. So when the Hearst Press put this fraud out, Wallace Dodd, the founder of the Nation of Islam, they questioned me there. Then they showed me a group that exists there called the Ratners. And they came, this is their proof to me, and they showed me the ring that all of the Ratners wore, and it was a star and crescent. I said, wow. Then they showed me some old pictures, and their crescent was facing the same way as our crescent, not the one in the east. And Ratner was their so-called prophet or leader, and this is why they tried to tie Wallace Dodd into the nation. So I told them that, did your leader ever travel? He said he traveled the world. I said it's obvious that he went into the Muslim world because he would not have that sign. And then they came to see me and they brought me old books and whatnot. And when they showed the sisters had on something just like you wear, sister, right now. So quite naturally, I'm puzzled, about it. And then, but I knew the Savior traveled the world. But also, if Ratner himself traveled the world, he interacted with Islam, like Marcus Garvey, working in that print shop in England. And Deuce Muhammad, who was training him in printing, began to teach him Islam. And he didn't take Islam as a form, but he used Islam to build his movement. I saw the same thing with Ratner in New Zealand. But it was most interesting because the people were searching. And one of the lawyers there who had to defend the Maoris, it's just like in America. If you go to New Zealand, the jails are packed with Maoris. And they are the indigenous people there. The lawyer who has to defend them, he didn't know what to do with them until he read Malcolm X's autobiography. So he made every one of the people that he was a public defender, that he had to serve, their order was to read Malcolm's autobiography. Because the first part of that biography is really good. It's just that when he died and they start twisting things and attacking the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in the end, especially in the ones that they reprinted. But in the book, it talks about somebody going to jail. The Maoris in New Zealand are in jail. And in jail, Malcolm heard something that turned his life around. Instead of becoming a liability to the black community, he became an asset. And it was the teachings of Islam. But in that DNA that we're talking about, perhaps it was there all the time. The Islam was there, and it took the right circumstances to bring it out. The strange twist of history. Thank you. May Allah bless you. Assalamu alaikum. So, brothers and sisters, I'm going to open up, as I always do, for a few questions. And then I want to mention on the table in the back, I have my book for sale. And in order for me to complete my autobiography called Traveling Through Life in the World, which inshallah I hope it will be out a little before Savior's Day next year. And it's about my travel in Islam, the death of Malcolm, Minister Farrakhan coming to New York. For 10 years he built that city. Our chief competitor was Philadelphia, but the Quran says, vie with one another in righteousness. Okay, I hope you understand that. Because if I go to a store owner in Philly and tell them that this is your quota 300 papers, and the store owner next week he only sells 50 papers, and you come back, you say, no, those are your papers. Pay for them, okay? That's not vying with one another in righteousness, okay? And so those who understand, you understand. Those who don't boggle your brain down trying to figure out who's on first, But vie with one another in righteousness. And that's what we did in New York. We're getting guests to come to the mosque, which is our main mission. One word a brother or sister could hear, they in the street, they come in here and hear something. And as Trump said to black America, you don't have nothing to lose. I always say that try it. If you come in here and join the nation, come to MGT sister or an FOI, and you got all kind of things bearing down on you in the streets of Philadelphia, try it. And when we get on your last nerve, the same door that opened to let you in will let you out. Don't believe the hype. Man, you join them black Muslims, you can't get out of there. And them Negroes is crazy. See? You're a grown man. I fear no one but God. I fear no one but Allah. So the book, I took all of my articles that I wrote, especially while I was in Africa. And there's some articles in my book that touched me. My love of Africa, because when the minister sent me there, I really didn't know what I was going to do. But for those 12 years, I traveled and I learned, and the appreciation for the struggle on the African continent. I was blessed. The minister allowed me to organize all of his world tours, the countries we would go to, the leaders that we would meet, and it was a blessing. On the table back there, you'll see a picture of President Rawlings and his wife on the front of the Chicago, I think it's the Chicago Tribune, or one of them, and how the minister cultivated a relationship with him that's really a brotherly love. He loved the minister, and he still loves the minister. So my book is all of these different articles about slavery. Wednesday they will have a press conference in Washington led by Imam Abdul Malik. That's the brother that took the minister through the Hajj, at the Washington Press Club, denouncing slavery in Libya. And I have two important articles in my book about slavery in Africa. So the book is there. If you purchase a book, I can autograph it for you. If you get a book autographed, this is just for your information as time goes on. I learned being in the book business, in the industry, that if the person just autographs the book and not put your name in it, and that person happens to become famous or well-known one day, the book is worth double. Like when you give it to your grandson and say, I got this book, you know, perhaps one day maybe I'll become famous and you have that autograph and then you get more for the book. But if you want your name, I'll be happy to put your name. I just want to tell you that I learned that from book collecting. Matter of fact, the book collector, one of the major rare book collectors is here in Philly. I came and see him because I have some rare books. I got one right here. It's called The Fringe of the Muslim World, written in 1926. Now, a lot of these books, The Rising Tide of Color, I think, was written in 1929. The Preaching of Islam by Arnold, another Englishman, is an excellent book. It shows how Islam spread in different parts of the world. Written, these white folks study Islam. Anybody ever heard the name Bernard Lewis? Anybody in here? Bernard Lewis, look him up, Google him. He wrote The History of Islam, Islam in the Arab World, but his specialty was the Ottoman Empire, because he was fascinated of the Ottoman Empire, which is the Turkish Muslims that's back in headlines right now, how they ruled this vast area of the world as Muslims. And wherever they went, like you hear about the Balkans, you hear about Kosovo, Albania, Yugoslavia, all of those states in Europe were under the Ottoman Empire, and they were Muslim. Okay? They were Muslim. The Bosnian Muslims are some white Muslims. I went to Bosnia, and it was unbelievable that they were Muslims, but they were living in a society with the Serbs. And they were drinking with them, going to the bar. The thing that distinguished them is their names. And so when this fighting broke out in '94, some of you may not remember it, when the fighting broke out and the Serbs were retaliating for the ancient Ottoman Empire conquering of that area, they were killing old men, young men, and boys based on their names. In other words, a man, his last name may be Civic, something like that, but his first name was Murad. They knew he was a Muslim. So one Muslim, Bosnian Muslim told me, he said that, well, if I'm going to die because I got a Muslim name, I might as well be a Muslim. And so that's when he got back into his faith. So this book, The Fringe of the Muslim World, which I'm going to bring it to Philly because it's in pretty good shape, printed in 1926. But the book really fascinated me because Kemal Ataturk, in 1923, he took over Turkey. He broke the back of the Ottoman Empire. You may not see the relevance, I don't need to know that. Don't be like Ben Carson. But when he was at Yale University, I hope everybody knows who Ben Carson is. Okay. When he was at Yale University, somebody must have told him, don't study that black history stuff. They don't make no money for you. How you gonna make any money with that? That's what they told him. So it reflected itself 2 times in his life. One time when they were talking about people coming to America in ships, he said, and some of you may remember, our people came here in the holds of ships looking for a better future. Black people, we came here as slaves. We didn't come here looking for no better future. Then the second time, he was in Detroit with Trump when Trump was campaigning. And they were interviewing him. They tried to get the black vote for Trump. And they were in the hood interviewing him in the area where he grew up. So he's in the middle of the interview. He said, my bags. Where's my bags? Where's my bags? And what he was saying to the world, I'm here with these Negroes. I got to look out for my bag. See, so don't be like that. Your knowledge of your history is your roots. You understand? Your knowledge of your history gives you the ability to look the white man or the white woman in her eyes and say, hell no. Okay? I'm not going for it. But if you don't know yourself, you be scratching your head, looking down. You don't know how to confront them. But when you know yourself and you love yourself and you know who you are, then you can confront them because you're a conscious black man or black woman. So I just want to say this quickly. So Ataturk, he wants to make Turkey more Occidental than Oriental. Because Turkey, at the time, was the only country in the world that sat on 2 continents, Asia and Europe. So he wanted to be more European. So he's tried to change everything. The first thing he did, the white folks who came to America, when they saw the wild bird with a red beak, they called it a turkey, after the Turks, because they always wore a red fez. So he wanted to take them out of the fez, because the Turkish men didn't believe in going in the street without their head covered. Either one of their caps or red fez is what they usually wore. And he did that. Then the next thing he did, he told the women they didn't have to cover their hair. This is Ataturk, the founder of modern Turkey in 1923. See, he was trying to be accepted by the Europeans. And that's what he did. And the women couldn't come to grips with it. Then the last thing that he did, the Turkish language was written in Arabic characters. Okay? Like many of the African countries, especially in this area right here, because of Islam spread down, the language was Arabic, but they used the Arabic characters to speak the African language. So he wanted the Turks to use the European characters to use their language, and that's why their names ended up messed up. Like, anybody know how you say Muhammad in Turkey? Mehmet. That's not the way you say it. The word is Muhammad. But in trying to make them more European and accepted by the Europeans. And so they're going through that struggle right now. I'm just talking about books. Then there's another book, and what you could do, if you got a little time, and you can break away from Netflix and all of that madness in movies, go on YouTube, and there's a man named Gary Wills. He wrote a book, What the Quran Meant and Why It Matters. Unbelievable. When I got the book, I couldn't put it down because he was saying all of the things that people believe, like the terrorists get 72 virgins, blowing up a building and killing people. Some of you heard that madness. He wanted to find out, is that really in the Holy Quran? So when he said he had a difficult time first reading it, because you got to know the flow. He said he had a difficult time, but he kept at it until he read it, and then he made this commentary. So you see him in 2 interviews with big audience, 90% white folks, because of their big audience, because of their interest in the power of Islam. And all of the things that are these myths, how you go to heaven and so forth, what Muslims do, he found out that none of that's in the Quran. And he's a scholar, man. He's not just somebody just reading. He said none of that's in the Quran. But they float it out, and people don't read and study, and they just say it and repeat it. Also, when his name is Gary Wills. In the book, I'll have it on the table, and there you can take your phone and click a picture of the cover. But go on YouTube, put his name in, and you can look at one or two of his lectures. Both of them are excellent. Excellent. Even the question and answer period. Then the last few things I want to say, that when I was coming up, I was young. This is one of the books that, how many have never seen this book? You can say it's all right. It's a different generation. Okay. It's called Seize the Time. And so this is about the Panthers. So this movie now will cause people, what are the Panthers? Where did they start? What is it about? See? I don't think the intention when they wrote it was that, unless some of the conscious brothers and sisters who were inside, but make them to go and re-examine the Panthers. And even though we had some differences with the Panthers, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told Minister Farrakhan always put a protection there. When the minister went to Huey Newton's apartment, and Huey Newton had his people to search us, and the minister submitted to the search, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad didn't like that, and he told him. He said, we the one that started searching. Right. You, my lead minister, you know, my minister, you know, well, you're not going to do nothing. Let him search you. And that's what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told the minister. And then the minister was regretful that he did it, and he kept talking about it, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, okay, you did it, it's over. Stop talking about it, because you keep looking back at a bucket of milk and you kick over like it. And it was over. But if you read the book, they got new introductions to it, but it tells you something about the brothers and their struggle. And then when the FBI had a kill order on Panthers, right here in Philly, and the thing that they did, they had to humiliate him because these were strong brothers. They didn't fear the white man. Who got rid of that fear that we had of white folks? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad. That's right. That's right. And they had no fear. And so J. Edgar Hoover gave police and the FBI the kill order, kill them. But the thing they did, and Philly was the famous one, because they stripped the brothers naked. Right. Some of you are old enough. This is for the Over the Hill gang. Anybody remember that in here in this audience? Stripped them naked and paraded them out in the street in front of their people. That was to humiliate them, to rob them of their dignity. See, a man, when you strip a man or a woman naked, you're like robbing something from them. And they went through that. But this is the book. Now, the last one I want to mention, and I'm going to talk about this over I'll finish this conversation up. I had this book because I like foreign policy, and you know, and I saw this book, and I purchased it. Sands of Empire, Missionary Zeal, Americans' Foreign Policy and the Hazards of Global Ambition. So America has a global ambition. So I put the book, it was sitting on my shelf for 1 year almost. I hope I can find this chapter. I hope I can. It was sitting on my bookshelf for a year, and then one day I took it off the bookshelf, and opened it up, and there's a chapter called The World of Islam. And I'm going to tell you, when I read it, it showed how deep the Western world looked at the power of Islam in the lives of people. And they felt always they had to fight. That's what you are involved in. But if you don't know about that they're looking, because Islam has the power to change the course of your life. So don't just look at, I joined the mosque, you know, I'm a Muslim, Assalamu alaikum, all praise be to Allah. But it's changed the course of your entire life. And here's white folks writing about it. So I just want to mention, I'm going to talk about it this evening at the bookstore. So I want to thank you very much. All praise is due to Allah. And so